people. How are we doing? Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Desmond. I've got Dre with the Michigan hat on, and the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Rogers is with us. We are the Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football channel. So while you are here, feel free to give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We definitely appreciate it. We are here every Wednesday from roughly about 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then on Saturdays post game after the Michigan win. Um, we have also, like I said, Mark is here with us, and he also has his main channel, The Voice of College Football, and I think 6 or 7 up to 26 other channels as well. So no matter what team that you like, he's got something for you. Hopefully you are a Michigan fan if you're joining us. And yeah, so we are here kind of talking a little bit about Michigan football. We're talking. Obviously, they are 6-0. They're heading into the bye week with Northwestern on the schedule next week. Um, so first, gentlemen, how we doing? Dre, how you doing?
No, doing good, doing good. Feeling good as a fan. Encouraged, I would say is the best word to describe it.
Yeah. Okay. And Mark, how about yourself? How you doing?
I'm doing well. And unlike Dre, I can watch Saturday night's game and just kick back and enjoy it. And whoever wins is whoever wins. I can just enjoy the football. So,
Perfect. Perfect. So Dre and I were actually texting, I want to say yesterday or the day before, but we actually talked about, with it being midway through the season, just kind of talking about where we thought Michigan would be at this point in the season, kind of our preseason predictions and see where we missed, where we hit, and kind of go from there. So Dre, I will kick it to you first, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, look, Michigan's already matched. You know, my preseason prediction. I believe I picked 5-7, 6-6, somewhere in that range. I thought we would lose to Washington. I thought we would struggle earlier in the season. Just based on how last year's gone and the trend of the program and all the changes that we made, especially from the coaching staff and schematics on the defensive side of the ball. But that has gone incredibly smooth. Mike McDaniel has come on campus. He's gotten those guys to believe in what he does, what he's trying to do. First, to change from a 4-3 to a 3-4 scheme, it's very difficult, especially if you don't necessarily have the right personnel on campus to do their roles, right? But he's been able to do that, and it helps to have freaks of nature like Aiden Hutchinson um, that can help spearhead your defense. But he's done a fantastic job. I think uh, Cade has definitely not been perfect, but he has been steady. I think that's the best word to describe. He's been steady. He has steadied the quarterback position. He has limited turnovers, albeit not having a lot of explosive plays on the field, but he has limited turnovers. Had his first interception of the season, uh, I believe so, on Saturday night against Nebraska. At least it was, I think it was 170 pass attempts they showed right before he threw his interception, actually.
It's always
And
always a
it's always
jinx.
like that,
Don't
right?
please don't show that. Please
I
don't
know
show
it's
that.
always like that, right? I knew it was coming too once they showed that. Um, so I think that the main takeaway I have that's really shocked me, and I think that's led to such a difference between my prediction and where they are, is just how steady they are on both sides of the ball. They don't do anything really fantastic. I have some stats here. Like um, the only top 10 ranking stat that Michigan has, if you look at, passing yards, rushing yards on offense, including receiving yards, or even sacks, interceptions um, on the defensive side of the ball, they're only the top 10 in rushing yards. Everything else, like for example, on defense, you would think with Aiden Hutchinson, they should be top 20, top 10 in sacks. They are 49th in the country. It's not like they're wrecking that much havoc, but it seems like it, right?
Hmm.
On the offensive side of the ball, you know, nowhere near in the top 50 in passing yards, but they're eighth in rushing. So I mean, like it's they're steady, they don't beat themselves, and you got to give Jim Harbaugh credit because there was a lot of shakiness in the program the last couple of years. I mean, there were some people that didn't think he would be extended. I mean, his extension happened very late.
Hmm.
He had a pay decrease, and pretty much his buyout is essentially nothing if Michigan wanted to move on. And they came to the season with a lot of pressure, and so far they've handled it pretty well.
Yeah, and I think that takes a lot of humility to do that, to take a pay a decrease. And I think they cut a salary in half if I'm remembering it
Pretty
correctly.
close
So
to it, yeah.
you're taking a 50% pay decrease and still expected to do as far as the ins and outs of the job, like you're still expected to do the same thing, right? Like the result of the game, you have some control of it as a coach, but overall, like not a huge amount of control over the result of the game. But still, you're before the preparation you have from Sunday to Friday or to Saturday morning is all the same, no matter how much you're getting paid. So to have the humility for Jim Harbaugh, to accept that and really just dive in and go all in with what he's doing with the program, having faith in Gaddis, and whether it's giving up more control, taking back more control, whatever that dynamic is, and then bringing in Mike McDonald, who has done a phenomenal job. Like, and I know you just read the stats, but I still think overall with the impact that defense has, because I look at a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, who, we talked to Greg last week, was the one player that he was concerned without a doubt,
Mhm.
going into the Nebraska-Michigan game, because that guy's borderline unblockable. So, and it's not always, the quarterback sacks. A lot of times it's the pressures,
Hurries.
it's
Yeah.
exactly because those are the things that'll get a quarterback into trouble, and, him rushing a decision. Um, so I think they've had a really big impact, and I thought the defense would improve because quite simply, I'm just not a Don Brown fan. I just thought he
Right.
was
One
pretty
trick
bad
pony.
as a defensive coordinator. Correct. I thought when he's playing Northern Illinois, you're going to look like the best defense known to man. But when he plays Ohio State, you're going to think he's a middle school defensive coordinator. Like that. That's what I thought of Don Brown. Sure, he's a sweet guy. He has a great mustache, but I just thought just having a different philosophy of getting out of the man-to-man, because there's just not many teams that do that because of the level of athlete that you see, in college football today. Like the receivers nowadays, I mean, are crazy. As far as what these guys are, their size, how fast they are, how quick they are. So I thought that the defense would be better. My one concern coming into this season was going to be how they managed Cade and the passing game. And had you told me that, Cade would have the number of pass attempts, which I think he was in the 60s or 70s going into that Wisconsin game, if you'd have told me that before the season started, I would have told you that you're probably going to lose that game. So I was definitely wrong there. I think I had Michigan at like a 8-4. I had them losing
Is it
to,
that
I want to say
optimistic?
maybe um,
Okay.
I believe so. I may have been 7-5,
No.
7-5 to 8-4, because I
Is
had
it
them beating Washington. You did not. You said you
right?
thought
No,
they
I
would lose to
didn't.
Washington. I thought they'd beat them. I didn't think Washington would really be a test for them. I thought it would be, maybe a tough game, but I thought they'd
Right.
win. But nonetheless, I was maybe the floor 7-5, closer to like 8-4. But I thought, Penn State, Ohio State, I thought those games would be losses, and they still have some pretty tough games ahead of them. But as long as they just keep building, I mean, they're going to be in really good shape. Michigan State, that's going to be a heck of a Halloween game in a couple weeks. So I'm
Can't
excited to
wait.
see that. But I mean, if before the season started, if we would have said, hey, would you take 6-0 going into the bye week? I don't. It did. I don't think it mattered how it looked. If that was the option, I think everybody would have taken that. Any Michigan fan, especially coming off of what last year looked like and the results. So, they're in a great spot. They're in a great spot. So, Mark, what about yourself?
I really don't know that I thought Michigan was going to be any better or worse than what they are right now. but I guess I thought a couple opponents were going to be better. So as I go game by game, I think I would have had them at 3-2 at this point, actually, or 4-2 at this point, actually, because I thought they were going to lose at Wisconsin. And I can't remember, but I believe that I had them losing to Washington. So, but not because I thought Michigan was going to be worse than what they are or substantially worse. I got to say that they're a little bit better than I anticipated, but it was more about those two other teams not being close to what I thought they were going to be. So these two wins here in the Big Ten over the last couple of weeks, Nebraska, Rutgers, who am I missing in there? Wisconsin, obviously.
How could you
I just
forget?
mentioned that game. Rutgers and Nebraska. So those would be the two games that I'm trying to figure out. So this Nebraska game on Saturday night, how good is Nebraska? Well, they're playing all these really close games against quality opponents. I won't say Michigan State and Oklahoma are two of the best teams in the country because I think that has yet to be proven, but I'll say quality opponents. And I guess on one hand, we can go the negative route and say, what is Michigan doing playing around with Nebraska, 3-4 team in the last 5 minutes? And what are they doing messing around with Rutgers in the fourth quarter of a one-score game? But on the other hand, I don't think it's rare that you point to a team anywhere, even ones that win conference championships, where they're not having to push through a couple games a year against not the best competition, especially on the road, where they had to gut it out and push it through, and they didn't win the game by 5 touchdowns. So, hey, they're 6-0. That's the bottom line at this point. And I think unless Ohio State takes off, which they're showing signs of, but again, who have they played in doing that? Man, it's going to be something else once Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State start playing each other, because Ohio State obviously has its concerns, and if those don't improve significantly, then it could those teams could just end up winning games against each other back and forth.
Yeah, that's going to be this. I think the scary part is, because of, really the top teams in the Big Ten are all in the same division. You've got, Michigan with their resurgence. You got Ohio State, who's seemingly always there. Penn State, Michigan State, and all these teams play each other. So, whereas and I think, Dre, we might have been texting talking about potentially the Big Ten getting 2 teams in.
Yeah.
It's got to be the perfect scenario, because I don't think it's going to be. It's just going to be really difficult because all these teams play each other. You're going to need essentially, Michigan and Ohio State to win out, until the Thanksgiving game, and then what you would need Ohio State to win that, and then Michigan potentially be the at-large because Ohio State already has a loss. So it would have to be a perfect storm, but it doesn't mean that there aren't extremely high quality, teams in the Big Ten, because there are.
No, I think if it was going to work, because I do think the Big Ten, those top teams are going to just eat each other alive. They're going to just, they're going to be beating up on each other. And I think if it was going to work, it would have to be one representative from the East and one representative from the West, Iowa, essentially, to make it to the playoff. Essentially, say if Iowa's undefeated, and based on how the rest of the country is doing, and their only loss, let's say, is in the Big Ten championship, or maybe they go and they run a table, and maybe Michigan or Ohio State only has one loss, right? Then those teams can, one of those teams from the East, because of their strength of schedule, especially towards the end of the season, right? Let's say Iowa runs the table, but Michigan runs the table but lose against Iowa in the Big Ten championship. We'll look at it like this. You'll automatically put Iowa into a college football playoff, but now you talk about a one-loss Michigan team that has beaten both Ohio State, Penn State, and MSU. Are you, based on how the rest of the country...
really say that team isn't
a
qualified to be a top 4? Yeah,
exactly. So that's the type of scenario that could play out. I think it would have to be Iowa running the table, essentially, in the West. That could open the door for 2 Big Ten teams to get in. And I think one thing that was huge, and was what happened with Bama this past weekend. Bama losing to Texas A&M. Yeah, that's going to hurt. That was a 3-2 unranked Texas A&M team. And with Clemson being down this year, you can get rid of the ACC being involved.
Yep.
Then no one's going to make it. I think Mark, I tuned to one of your shows this past weekend, and you was talking about Wake Forest. Is 6-0?
Wake Forest,
right?
They are
Sure.
undefeated.
Yeah, right.
They're
No
undefeated.
one's going like Wake Forest. Come on, let's be honest. They're not going to get this thing done in the ACC.
Hey, you got to create content.
right?
Got to create scenarios.
right.
And
Pac-12, no, not really worried there. Big 12, maybe Oklahoma. But with the way they're playing, you just never know. They could drop one. They've been skating on thin ice.
Yeah, it's not the typical Oklahoma just blow
Exactly.
through the Big 12. They've
Exactly.
been struggling.
So it's wide open. It's really wide open for two Big Ten teams to get it done and get into the playoff this year.
I think for that scenario, I think you've got to keep your fingers crossed for a Cincinnati loss, because I think with where they're ranked now, and I think SMU is probably the toughest team left on their schedule. I'm not sure who they would play in the in the AAC championship, which obviously we're still pretty early, but because I think if Cincinnati wins out, I think they're going to get in, because I just think of just the doors that have been open, and there, it's like you said, Clemson's not there. It's not the lock there with Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, where you just pencil those three teams in and everybody's just playing for the 4th spot. Like things have changed quite a bit. But
Notre Dame used to be in the mix for that 4th spot the last few years, and they'll get in. That's not going to happen this year. So that it's pretty wide open this year.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati. I'd be willing to pencil in Cincinnati that they're going to be a team in the playoff. I feel confident saying that.
Yeah. But we got a long way before we get there. Michigan's doing what they have to do week by week. But as much good we have seen from this team, there are definitely what's the one thing that we've been consistent with every week is that we judge this team based on what boxes they are checking on that trajectory to win a Big Ten title. And they have checked a lot of those boxes, but there's still some gray area, and it still lies in the quarterback position. That's not to say Cade McNamara has been bad. Not that he's been steady. I think he's been solid. He's been the antithesis of a game manager. That's really who he is. He allows the offense to stay on the field and, doesn't put the defense typically in a bad position by turnovers. And you can win a lot of games that way. But the question is, if you're struggling at times to hit the big plays, which he did on Saturday night, one in particular, was a touchdown that could have put the game in a much more comfortable position. He missed it, and it wasn't just that one. You can excuse one play, but it was a few throws, more than a handful that were not ideal. And he's got to at least, you won't be perfect, but maybe convert at least half of those. He has to, because as the schedule gets more backloaded and they play MSU, who's ranked think about, listen to this. The top 3 teams in sacks, and I know sacks on everything, quarterback hurries and pressures and everything, but just getting home, the top 3 teams in the country are Troy, Houston, and Marshall. Now, I'm sure part of that is due to the competition that they're playing, right? Including each other. But 4th, it's MSU. So out of all if you consider, which I do, MSU to be the first real Power 5 team, they are, if you exclude those top 3, they are number 1 in the country out of Power 5 teams in sacks. So that's going to be a test. How at East Lansing, how does Cade, react to that pressure, the pressure of the game and the literal pressure of the MSU defensive line, and the one thing about Michigan is that they actually done a pretty good job of keeping him clean. And yet he still has had these accuracy issues at times. So that's going to be a dynamic that I'm not saying that he can't do it, but he has to prove that he can. And that's one of those boxes that he has to check. And if he can, that will be another huge step to winning those games and staying on the trajectory to win the Big Ten. But if he can't, then we may start seeing some limitations of this team as the schedule gets tougher.
Yeah, I think Michigan has done a really good job though of not putting Cade in the situations to where, hey, we got to have it, right here. Like we talked about it going into the Wisconsin game of, if you're got the ball on the 20-yard line, you got to go 80 yards to get a touchdown, or you need a field goal, you got a minute 20 left. Like they've done a really good job of not putting him in those situations. And I think the defense is good enough where I don't think they'll let many teams get away from you. Like I think you'll always be in the game. But the tough part is without having that explosive pass game is even some bad teams and teams that you probably should be up 2 and 3 scores, it's still going to be closer because of the style of offense that you play. So as long as these guys are, have the stomach and the gut for it, I think they'll be, I think they'll be okay. Northwestern's coming up next week, and I just, I clamor for it, and I'm a broken record, but I'd love to see Cade flinging around quite a bit against
Don't
Northwestern.
go
I
backwards.
think we're pretty clear that that's probably the worst team in the conference. So, when you look at opportunities, like we've talked about it and again and again, but you don't get many opportunities, and when you do, you've got to take advantage of them because college football is so unforgiving, so
Yes.
unforgiving. So we'll see what happens. Looks like Chris wants JJ. Oh, he says he thinks JJ will get a lot of run against Northwestern. Um, as
He
far as
might. He might get a lot of actual runs. We'll see if he actually passes the ball. It typically when JJ gets in the game, it's to do a little RPO action, but it's more R than it is P than it is to P. And I don't know if that's JJ making that decision or if that's coming from up top. I got a feeling that JJ, from the few times he has passed the ball, based on his personality, he's more of a gunslinger. So I feel like
oh yeah,
it's coming from up top. If I feel like he wants to throw the ball. So
yeah, he's
you
from
know,
IMG Academy,
yeah,
big time
he wants
five
to rip it. He
star.
wants
I
to
mean,
grip
come
it and
on.
rip it. He wants to grip
Yeah.
it and rip it.
He's got it. He doesn't have the. I look at a guy like him, and then I look at another guy like Spencer Rattler, and maybe I'm kind of piling on to him right now, but
And you don't like
as
looking
far
at him.
as just as far as their attitude and just kind of the moxie, like it seems like, JJ is more of a down to earth kind of like I think he just truly wants like Michigan to win, like to do well. Whereas I
Yeah,
feel like Spencer Rattler, like, no, I want to play and I want to like fling it around, like because
I
he's
want to get
always
mine.
he's always
I'm here
been
to get
right.
mine.
He's always been a guy who's
Yeah.
extremely talented, and I think he went to Pinnacle High School. Like, but I mean, the guy is extremely talented. But I just look at how different those guys are with their just personality. I guess is probably the easiest thing, and it's very different. It's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, to Chris's, point about Northwestern and JJ is that we're getting really to the point in the season now where I think it may be getting a little too late before you have to start thinking about making that kind of change. I mean, honestly, the way the schedule's about to, the intensity of the schedule's about to get these last few weeks in the season, last half of the season, you need Cade to flick that ball around a lot versus Northwestern. Because it's clear that you have chosen him to be your guy. Okay.
Yep.
So no matter what we want as a fan base, who we think has the higher upside, they've chosen Cade to be their guy. Now, you've noticed, I'm sure they've noticed, as we all have noticed, that, hey, they got to get a little bit more efficient with the passing game. They've gotten better, but it still needs some fine tuning. This is the perfect week to do that. My only ask for Gaddis and Harbaugh and the staff offensively is don't go backwards. When they typically, especially early in the season, when they were playing weaker opponents, they're playing safe. They just hand the ball off. Let's dominate the line of scrimmage, and let's get out of here with a victory.
Mm-hmm.
No. This needs to be the practice game. You're going to beat this team. You're going to beat Northwestern, okay? You don't have to worry about losing this game. As long as you come out focused, you'll be fine. Throw the ball. Let JJ for once rip it 35. Well, he actually threw it 38 times versus Nebraska.
Cade, not
Well,
JJ.
who I say?
You said JJ.
I'm sorry. Let Cade rip it. He threw it 38 times versus Nebraska. Great. I want to see
Could
that
you
again.
imagine the ESPN headlines of like Michigan football on the voice of college football is, JJ's gonna throw the ball
Yeah, no, no.
38
You didn't
times,
hear
new
that here first.
starting
You did not
quarterback.
hear that here first. You did not hear that here first. Cade, have similar attempts. And I knew a lot of that was out of necessity because they were down and they had to throw the ball. But it probably won't be a necessity versus Northwestern, but still have the same number of attempts, right? That's my only ask against Northwestern.
Maybe that was just a little Freudian slip out of Dre over there about playing McCarthy instead.
Preconditioned that that's what I actually want. Yeah.
Here's two scenarios that come to mind that relate to this situation between McNamara and McCarthy. Would be the one we just saw play out at Iowa for Penn State. So Sean Clifford goes down in the second quarter, and they're done. They're done. Their offense is shut down. Their backup quarterback situation, a lot of places across the country, especially at the level of Penn State. Yeah, of course the backup quarterback's not as good because there's a reason he didn't win the job, but he's still capable, competent. You still run your offense, probably limit very little, and you just keep moving with that guy. That team was a different team. They were playing with an arm behind their back. Now, if he has to play the next several weeks and it turns into a long-term thing, I'm sure he's got the ability, but it was pretty obvious he was not ready for that situation, and they played like it. Fortunately for Michigan, they've been playing J.J. McCarthy. They've been giving him some time, a couple series here, a couple series there. We're looking at, again, that Taquan Roberson, I think, had 7 pass attempts this year, something like that. They just didn't play him to where I think as a Michigan fan, you would feel pretty confident if JJ did have to take it over that, hey, there might be a bit of a drop off in regards to him just not having the reps, but he's shown. They played him at Wisconsin. They played him in various situations where the game was still in doubt and he had to run the offense in a meaningful situation. So he can do it. The other situation that comes to mind, and I don't know that we can really place Michigan in this category, Dabo Swinney early in 2018, he had a team with Kelly Bryant at quarterback that he knew they were going to win the ACC. They're going to win the ACC. Kelly Bryant, I think, started the first 3 or 4 games. They won with no problem. They were going to win the ACC. He took a slight gamble, which seems like no gamble now because he turned out to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. But at the time, it was a gamble to go with a freshman quarterback thinking there's my upside. That's the guy that can win a national championship. We're going to win the ACC regardless. So I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to bench a quarterback that's kind of doing the job, but I could possibly have a great team. And it obviously worked out and they won a national championship.
Now, to the Clemson point, Mark, and you did preface by saying, Michigan's not at that level, but I think there are some two distinct differences that I think about. One, I think the previous year before that, there was a full burden of proof, a whole season burden of proof of how far Kelly Bryant could take them. I think they made it to the college football playoff with Kelly Bryant, and they lost against Bama in the semifinals.
They scored 6 points.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and so it was clear. I think there was a clear after a full season that what he could do, and it's still it's still very good. We know this guy, he can get us to the college football playoff. But so I still think it was a calculated risk, but also I think what helped is just how Clemson had a bigger margin of error playing in ACC because of how much better they were than their peers, right? I think Michigan doesn't have that luxury. For one, they don't have a full burden of proof to really know. I still don't think we quite know what Cade is yet. And this is just a thought. This is a thought in my head, and I want you guys to let me know if you think this is off base. Are these perceived limitations of Cade due to actual physical limitations, or are they a product of Michigan not getting the repetitions in earlier in the season, right? And is this a product of not? I don't want to say rust, but more just rhythm and timing.
I think it's more I think it is Michigan not prioritizing the pass game. I
Yeah,
think that's why we see Cade performing the way he is. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying he's performing poorly, but when we talked about it going into the Rutgers game. Mark read off a stat line and quizzed us on who is this guy. And
right.
I think I threw out. I mean, we threw out high level quarterbacks, and it was Cade McNamara. Like he had an amazing game last year against Rutgers. So I know that it's possible, but it's just Michigan. I think that's the part of Harbaugh that hasn't like fully evolved and in taking that next step is he although he's getting better with it, he is such a safe like head coach. Like he just is. And there's safety in running the football, especially when you're really good at it, like Michigan is. I think you mentioned Dre, he's they're in the top 10.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. It's just not a prioritization of the pass game. And I think it would be very well at this level, like relatively easy to do for a high level offensive coordinator. How about that? Like obviously not easy for me, but for a high level offensive coordinator to mix in, I don't think it's crazy to have 6 or 7 pass attempts in the first quarter for a quarterback. Like, and that can be sprinkled in relatively easily. Like I just don't foresee it being such a burden that that sometimes Michigan seems to make it. I think it's something that you could definitely do off of play action, and it doesn't have to always be super aggressive that you're throwing the ball 50 yards down the field. It could be a play action, a simple 10-yard out, a flood route. Like there's a lot of basic things that they can do to get Cade warm, get him warmed up, get him comfortable earlier in the game so that when you do need him against a Nebraska or, soon to be Michigan State and Penn State, he's ready to roll. So I,
Right.
I think it's just they don't prioritize the pass game. And like I said, you're 6-0, so I'm not gonna beat you up about it. But that seems to be the philosophy is our who we are is running the football and playing defense. That's who we are.
When I think about this Michigan team, I think about discipline and safe, and discipline and safe. They, like I said, they don't do really anything extremely like dynamic. You know what I'm saying? Like like running the football would be one. I mean, they do a really good job with that, and then they do have chunk plays and explosive plays. I mean, Hassan Haskins. I mean, he had this run versus Nebraska. Normally it's Blake Corum who does the exciting plays. I mean, bursting through the line of scrimmage, hurdling the guy, in full sprint. I think it was a 650, 60-yard run. I mean, so we get our explosive players through that. That's dynamic. But other than that, it's not really even turnovers. I mean, we've gotten a little bit better. At first, I think the first 3 or 4 weeks they didn't have a turnover, or first 2 games or something like that. And now we starting to force at least one a game. But it's just not a lot of dynamic plays, and that's okay. You can still win a lot of games that way. But what it does is that I think it can create a situation in which you could be in dogfights, right? And your margin of error gets smaller when you're not able to. Like I think about how, example, you guys at Bama does. What really makes it so tough to beat Bama, or even to beat to bring it more into the Big Ten, to beat an Ohio State team that's clicking, is that you have to bring your A game. And you can't really have any slip ups, even if you're playing well with them. You're going punch for punch with them. Let's say it's 24-24. We saw this with the Minnesota game. First game of the year. It's 24-24, late third quarter, halfway through the third quarter, and you have the ball on offense, and all of a sudden you have a turnover, your first turnover of the game, or you go 3 and out. Ohio State gets the ball, bam, they score 31-24. And then now you're in a situation where you have to keep up with them.
Mhm.
And even if you kick a worst case scenario, you kick a field goal, right? It's 27-31, and now Ohio State goes down and scores. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
it's tough. It's tough. And so when you go back to a team like Michigan, which you're a little bit more steady, you don't really have that huge explosion all the time. It can create a situation in which if you are in the shootout, you have to be pretty much perfect. You can't really have any mistakes. So that could be a concern potentially if you get in a situation like that.
Yeah. Agreed. And it's you know it, it I, the margin just going to be smaller. Like if you were a team that threw the ball a lot, maybe you'd win by 21. But because you run it more, maybe you win by 7 or 10. You know what I mean?
Right.
And same thing on the flip side too with losing a game. Like instead of losing by, you don't have those large blowouts that teams do when, like for instance, a Mississippi State or an air raid type team that's like, man, we threw 5 picks, we got blown off, doors blown
Right.
off. Like
Right.
you don't have those huge drop offs where you're just, you're getting blown out. It's just like, no, we lost by 14. So like I said, if you got the stomach for it, that's fine. But
Yeah. You're not gonna
if
you're a
not,
little uneasy. And I
right,
can tell you myself, and I know a lot of Michigan fans, I was very uneasy last Saturday night. I was very uneasy, especially when, you know, and I had a bad feeling, when we ended the first half, we kicked the field goal. I think we went over 13-3 or something like that. My memory
I think
doesn't.
it's 13-0 at half. I think.
13-0 at half, something like that.
Yep.
Anyway, Nebraska scores quickly in the first half, gets the ball back, scores again. All of a sudden, Michigan's down. Like it's just that quickly because you're not creating that separation.
Mm-hmm.
That quickly, you can find yourself back in a dogfight. Where at one point it seemed like you were in control of the game, right? But all it took was a little bit of a mishap and a couple of drives. All of a sudden, you're back uncomfortable again. And credit to the team, for I think the first true adversity they faced all season, they responded multiple times in that game. So it's very encouraging. But all in all, you still did need you needed Adrian Martinez to do a Adrian Martinez thing, which is to turn the
You
ball
needed him
over.
to come through for you.
We needed him to come through because even so, like I didn't have in that second half. I mean, Nebraska was moving the ball against Michigan. They really were. I didn't have a lot of confidence that we could stop them on that drive. That's what I was banking on, a turnover. I was praying to the football gods that we would get a turnover, and we got it. But that's tough. That's a tough way to try to win a football game. So it's just things to be aware of going forward.
Michigan's been living right, man. When you're living right, the football gods they'll look
Hey,
out for
about
you.
time, man. We had a lot of bad karma lately, man. That's
The
why
football
Ohio
gods
State's
are
doing what
Adrian
they-
Martinez. One of them is going to look out for you.
Yeah. Did you guys see his explanation? He said he thought the play stopped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, dude, you were like, they were pushing the pile. Like the play was still live. Did you guys see that?
Yeah. I heard him say that. Yeah.
You got to own it, man.
You got to own it. You got to play through the whistle. Shoot, he's been playing enough football to know that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I got to check out. Amazing job as always. I hope everybody that's watching this, whether it be live or on the replay, knows to catch these guys after every Michigan game. And I know that's about 10 days away from now. So don't forget, because the Michigan game, obviously none this week, but the Northwestern game, Des and Dre do an amazing job wrapping up Michigan every week. So guys, I'm going to check out. You have a good rest of your conversation there. We'll see you.
Thanks, Mark. So, Dre, I got a question for you. Do you find it odd that teams aren't stacking the box against Michigan? Because when to preface it, going into the Wisconsin game, I thought for sure that we were going to see a loaded box. We were going to see 8 men in the box, and Wisconsin just absolutely dare you to throw the football. And they didn't do that, which I thought was odd. But
well, no.
Do you think that's odd?
No, for two things. One, I don't think, of course, they weren't stacking the box, but I think they were coming downhill pretty quickly. I think they were guessing run first and they're reacting to pass secondly. So, like, not in terms of formation, stacking the box, but in terms of mentality and approach to the play, I think they were definitely reacting run first. Safety is coming downhill first, then they see a pass, which is why the flea flicker works so well in the Wisconsin game. And I think also it's due to just the spread, the fact that Michigan's in a spread formation, right? You can't just out of just discipline. You can't, you got to be at least cognizant of the guys on the outside. So it's just tough to do. It's a lot easier to stack the box when it's a pro style offense, right? Because you got the tight ends and everything's a lot more in the box, literally,
in the box.
Between the hashes, right? So it's just a little bit different.
I think if I were a D coordinator and let's say whatever Michigan State, I have no idea who their D coordinator is, but I would have 8 guys in the box. Like for your covering your slot guys, I would just have my outside linebackers just basically split the difference from the tackle to that guy, but creep in a little bit more to the the run game, and I would make Michigan throw me out of having 8 in the box. Like until you're gonna throw a bubble screen consistently and have those guys out wide, catching the ball and running. Like until that happens consistently, like I'm not going to stay in my base defense and just let you run the ball at will. Like I'm going to make you throw the ball, and because I know that if I don't do that, like Michigan's a good enough running team and that defense collectively that I know they can beat me that way.
Right.
Can they beat me just throwing the ball? Like if I get them out of we're going to run the ball and get them off schedule behind the chains. Can Cade consistently on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10? Can he consistently convert those first downs?
Yeah. No, I see your point. I definitely see your point. I think it's just more or less like the defense trying to be disciplined, and trying to avoid, gosh, the one time we do stack the box, they're going to hit us with a bubble screen. They're going to get somebody over the top, right? And you're just trying to keep that extra little safety blanket there, right? Just in case. And also, you got to give Michigan credit. They have passed the ball a whole lot more these last few weeks. And, they're not, even though they're still running the ball effectively, they're not gashing like they were the first few weeks. And most of that, I think, is due to the level of competition. It's harder we said that, right? It's just going to be, you're not going to get 300 yards rushing, as the schedule gets tougher. These teams are just too good for you to do that. And that's why we wanted them to diversify their offensive attack, which they've done. But I just think and so now, look, like even though Cade's had a few hiccups here and there with accuracy, he still has proven that he can throw the ball. And you got guys, even though Roman Wilson didn't play. You saw Baldwin, make plays. You saw Sanders Steele make an incredible catch. You saw Eric in his I think they were curl routes over the middle of the field. Wasn't really post routes, but getting about 7 to 10 deep, sitting in the zone, being an easy option for Cade, especially when under pressure. So those are things that you may not fear on defense, but things you have to respect. And so now that I think that also adds an extra little dynamic that the opposition has to think about.
Yeah. Well, we got Michigan State coming up in a couple weeks. What's your early on feeling about that game?
Man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. I right now, if I had, I'll go 50. It's a 50-50 toss up, and I think that's a cop out. I just I think really no, seriously. I think as confident and good as I feel about my team and we feel about Michigan, you got to give MSU credit, man. I mean, like I read all through. They are 36 in the country in passing yards. They are 22nd in rushing yards. They are 4th in sacks. They are 26 in interceptions forced. I mean, they're in a tough, and mind you, these are a lot of these team stats. Michigan's not even nowhere close to them. I mean, I think the only one that Michigan's ahead of them, actually, I know this for a fact, is rushing yards. Other than that, MSU is ahead of Michigan there. So I mean, I don't like saying that. I feel sick saying that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And you got to give them their credit. And we're at East Lansing too. It's going to be a crazy crowd. Even though I know Michigan's going to be sprinkled, fans are going to be sprinkled in there as well. It's going to be tough, man. And one thing, the Spartans are not going to just let us walk in there and take their lunch money. It's going to be a dogfight. And it's just one of those, both teams do things well. I think MSU has proven they are a little bit more dynamic. I use that word dynamic a lot, but more dynamic, especially on offense. With Jalen Reed and the Peyton Thorne and Jalen Reed connection has been fantastic. Kendall Walker III has been, I think, a Heisman Trophy candidate. He's been fantastic. Their defense creates, pressure in the backfield. Obviously, they do a lot of things, a lot of explosive things well. And Michigan's more steady Eddie. So seeing those two dynamics come two different styles come together on the field, and then you got the rivalry, and then both teams are really good. It's just hard for me to go in there with a lot of confidence, say, yeah, we're going to get this victory. No, I think it's going to be a toss-up, and I think it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm not sure. Well, we'll end up giving a prediction on that because we just have to. But I'm not sold on giving it right now. But man, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be a physical game. I think it's really going to be a battle of the quarterbacks. Really, who can be more effective and explosive, with the football. So we'll see. I think we're pretty much in lockstep that Michigan's going to win big next week against Northwestern. And really, this is one to kind of roll out like, hey, let's fling it around a little bit. Let's win the game. Let's get out of here healthy, and let's get ready for Michigan State.
See, but I give getting out, and here's another dynamic. Another little thing to think about as well is that MSU is going to have a bye weekend before that. The weekend that we play Northwestern, MSU has a bye week, so they're going to essentially have 2 weeks to prepare for the game.
I thought Michigan State played Indiana this weekend.
No, so yes, but so MSU plays this weekend, but they have a bye.
So you said Michigan has a bye.
No, I'm saying MSU's going to have a bye. They're coming off a bye when we're going to play.
I got you.
So they're going to have essentially 2 weeks. Am I losing it? Okay. 2 full weeks to prepare for that game. So that's another aspect to go into it. I mean, it's look. I'm looking at the comments now, guys. Look, it doesn't seem. And that's why you got to give Mel Tucker a lot of credit. It doesn't seem feasible for a guy in his second year, really his first full off season at his university, as bad as MSU was and the program they were, to have a turnaround. But it's real. And just like us, no, they haven't really beaten anyone, but we really haven't either in terms of where those teams are right now. So you got to give them their credit, and we cannot take them lightly. That's one thing that we need to change. We did in the Mark Antonio days is that Michigan took MSU lightly, and every time we'll meet on Saturdays, they'll punch us in the mouth. They were the more mentally tough team. We cannot have that mentality anymore. That team is they have a lot of transfers, but they have a cohesive unit. They play for Mel Tucker, and they are explosive. This is a different MSU team. At least in terms of style, than it was on the Mark Antonio. Mark Antonio was trust the ball, right? Control the time of possession. It didn't have a physical defense. This MSU team is like they're trying to put up points, man. So like don't
and they can too.
They can. So like it's you gotta give them their respect. And we're in their barn.
Janet says the battle of Rodney Dangerfield. This woman respect. Oh, no respect. We need to figure out something for that game. I don't know if you have something planned for the Michigan State, but we should figure out something.
Man. Always down, man. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be. I mean, look, you're going to have to give me like a little what's the little bag where people breathe in, because
barf bag.
Little barf bag, because I think it's going to be that kind of game. I think it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. And I see people say I fear OSU and MSU. Well, no, I think Janet said fearing OSU and PSU, but not MSU. I think they're all in the same boat. I mean, now I'm not saying they're the exact same team, but they all do things well, and they should be respected, as they are. You got to give it up to them, as much as you don't want to.
I'd say you should fear Michigan State because they're the next closest game on the schedule. I think
they're the best team by far. We've played on our schedule. Best team by far
at that time. Yep. And then after that, it'll be whoever's next.
Right.
But it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting. Deep Brown says Sparty's best players, Wake Forest transfer.
Guys, I'm telling you, man, stop it. Like you're setting yourself up. I'm not trying to protect my heart. If you think that's what I'm doing, like I really do respect MSU. And I don't like it.
As you should. I mean, they're top 10 in the country. Don't set yourself up for a heartbreak on that Saturday because I mean, look, as good as we're playing, there's a chance we can go into that game and we're like, we just lost to Mel Tucker 2 years in a row. That is, I'm not saying fear anyone. I'm saying respect. There's a difference. Yeah.
The best believe we going in there I don't care if they're the Spartans. We're going there with our shields and spears, and we're going there to take their field, and we're going to take their juice like we've been doing the last few weeks. If you notice, too, we do the whole take the juice of the last few away games, whatever little shtick those teams have, or jump around, or
Oh yeah,
and I think it was Thunderstruck that Nebraska was doing. We got our players doing it. We're gonna go in there with that mentality. That don't mean that we're not gonna come out, that we will come out victorious. So just be careful, have respect for them, and just we'll gloat after the game. But I can't do much gloating before. Don't do too
yeah.
much
Well,
gloating
and it'll
before.
be. I want to say I think they've said that that'll be a noon game. I believe.
Yeah, it's because people don't know how to act. Like, I would love that to be a night game, but you're talking about a full day of tailgating and that kind of hype game as well. MSU and Michigan fans, even though I do think MSU fans are the worst. Well, no, actually, Ohio State fans are the worst than MSU. Nothing's worse than Ohio State fan. But then MSU fans, too, are bad. And then we're there, and that's just not a recipe for, people not acting like fools. So, but yes, it's going to be at noon, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Go
we'll
Platte,
figure out
baby. Gus
something.
Johnson.
That's the second one that they'll be doing of Michigan's, right? Because then they do either
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Yeah, I think they did Wisconsin. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
we'll
we're
get that.
here.
We'll get that figured out, and we'll do something. I think Michigan still does like the normal tailgate, like
Yeah.
golf course, all that, Pioneer, and so we'll figure out something, and maybe we'll do our post game together in Ann Arbor with some crazy Michigan fans behind us. So that'd be kind of cool.
Amen. Looking forward to it. But gotta take care of Northwestern first.
Yep. They're first on the menu. Then you got to take care of it. Then you move on. So
Don't want
we
to do
shall
what
see.
your Crimson Tide did against a Texas A&M team and go into Saturday sleeping.
Yeah, that'd be bad. So
Not good for
I
them,
think
is it?
they'll be fine. Until they drop another game, it's like, hey, we've won plenty of national championships without being undefeated. So
Okay. All right. Well, thanks guys for tuning in. We appreciate your support. No one needs to hear about gloating Alabama fan.
you brought it up, not me.
Yeah, that's true.
But thanks everybody for joining us. Please, before you go, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And we have actually taken over the Oklahoma football at the Voice of College Football channel. So we have them beat, and now we are moving on. The Miami channel has like over 5,000 subscribers on Mark's channel. It's crazy. I'll post it a little bit later on, kind of our next victim. Like we
Ooh.
gotta slowly but surely like bump our way up. But yeah, Miami's got a ton, Ohio State's got a ton, and I think
Okay, that's a fact.
Clemson's our next one. So we were like 2.3. I think Clemson's like 2.6. So we got some work to do. But thank you everybody
Miami.
for subscribing. Definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, we need to beat them. So I say thank you, but also we got more work to do. So share the channel with your friends, family, other Michigan fans on Twitter as well. If you follow Mark Rogers, myself is at All Go Podcast, the number 1. Dre, your Twitter handle is it at Dre MJ23?
Yes.
You need to change that, but that is his handle. So don't tweet Dre because he doesn't tweet at all. Tweet me.
I do.
I will respond, and then we can go from there. So appreciate you guys for joining us. Thank you so much. We can't say thank you enough. We definitely appreciate it. And that is it for us.
Peace.
Peace.